Welcome back to the Icon Edit, episode 8, the podcast for, about and with women. And today we're talking about a topic that affects millions, if not almost all women, but still isn't discussed nearly enough: perimenopause and the transition into menopause. Perimenopause can start earlier than many people think, and the symptoms can be subtle or confusing, from cycle changes and sleep disruption to anxiety, brain fog, and of course, shifts in body composition. My guest today is Sharon James, a menopause coach and educator based in the UAE and the founder of the GCC Menopause Summit. She helps women understand what's happening in their bodies and how to feel better with evidence-based real-life strategies. Sharon, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Before we get into symptoms and solutions, what brought you personally into menopause education and coaching?
Menopause brought me into this. I was going through life fit, healthy, very athletic, and all of a sudden my energy drive was changing, and it's the usual rhetoric. It's like everything's changing, but I haven't changed sort of scenario. So my body was changing, and I didn't know why. I just thought maybe it was my vitamins. Maybe I needed to get more sleep. So when I started researching, I'm 55 now. So this was 10 years ago. There was nothing. There was, we didn't even have ChatGPT then. So it was Google. And the more I put in, then this word kept coming up, perimenopause. And I thought, what the heck's that? I've heard of menopause, but in a really negative manner, and I related it, like most people do, to my mum or my grandma and so on. I wasn't definitely not in menopause stage, but I was, and it was perimenopause. And I've worked with women for 30 odd years, working with them through nutrition and exercise, even lifestyle changes. And I thought, gosh, I've worked with all these women who are probably within that range, and I didn't even know about this. So had I known, I'd have probably worked with them differently.
Yeah.
Because the way that we work with them now.
And you, as I said in the beginning, you also helped to build the GCC Menopause Summit. Mm-hmm. What gap did you see in the region that made you create something that big?
Oh, education. Just education and awareness. Because, as I say, as I was sort of researching it for my own personal, I realised that there was no communication, there was no talk about menopause, because women didn't want to talk about it because of the rhetoric, the shame, the embarrassment, and everything else that came with it back in the day. So I felt that I really needed to put this on a bigger scale and get women and medical professionals, coaches, talking about it so that women didn't feel ashamed anymore of something that's just naturally biological. We will all go through it in different stages and ages and different ways. So we shouldn't be embarrassed about it.
Absolutely. And before we go a little deeper, can you define menopause and perimenopause in simple terms for people who don't know really what's the difference between perimenopause and menopause?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the perimenopausal stage starts first, and that's something that slowly is making your body change. And generally, it's usually your cycles that change. Your periods might become lighter, heavier, not come at all, just have a mind of their own. So that's the first kind of stage that you'll sort of see. Then you may start to get the symptoms like hot sweats. Your body composition might start to change a little bit. And just things don't feel quite right. And if you know your body as a woman, you'll know the changes are starting to occur. However, saying that, the symptoms can actually be masked because we as women nowadays are very busy. And the perimenopause can start in your early 30s, 40s upwards. And as we are now in life, we're very busy women. We've got lives, families, extended families. So stress, anxiety, depression, mood swings, all comes with natural day-to-day life, right? Yeah. So we just then put it down to that, and we never do that exploration of, could it be the perimenopause? So now we're making women aware that it could be. There are things that they can do quite quickly to help that. So once we start the perimenopausal journey, that can last for anywhere between 4 and 10 years. Every woman's different. And once our periods come to a stop, we have to go through 12 months of no cycles.
Okay.
And once we've gone through that 12 months of no cycles, we are in post-menopause, because menopause is just one day. It's literally a crossover from our 12th month of not having any periods to going into post. And that's it.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
The perimenopausal stage is the worst. I wouldn't say the worst stage, but the longest stage. Apart from the 12 months that we don't have any periods, then we're in postmenopause for the rest of our lives.
So let's talk about perimenopause, because I have the feeling, so I personally have heard about perimenopause, I don't know, like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Until then, I haven't heard a single time this word. So for me, this was something new. And I also found out that this is something that this was not very well studied until recently. Why do you think that is?
Oh, there's loads of reasons. The main reason is because we as women have never been studied. All the studies and that have been done have usually been done on white male men. Because women's hormones are so fluctuating, it sort of doesn't give a true reading of studies that they do in the medical industry. So we've never really been studied. And even with the education that I got, I was always working on white male, mid-50s, 40s, whether it's to do with exercise and nutrition. So everything that I got taught when I was younger for my profession, it was all done on men. So that's one of the reasons. I think that's the main reason, because we've never been studied. Really.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
When you said that it can start perimenopause even in the early 30s, when should women start paying attention? And what is normal? When is the point where you say, okay, now you have to do something about it, or go and seek professional help? That's
a great question. I love that question. Now, even when you're in your younger years, the pre-menopause, so the pre-perimenopause as they call it, the more women can identify with their own bodies. Look, data is key. The more data we have on our individual self, the better we will transition. And what the studies are now showing is that the more we look after ourselves pre-menopause, pre-perimenopause as well, is nutrition. Well, I'll start with sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress. And if we can start looking after those 4 pillars, then I'm not saying the transition would be any better. It might be, the symptoms might be less, and there are studies to show, and I've worked with women where we have changed those and their symptoms have really calmed down. So the more they can be aware of their cycles, work with their cycles, and really understand their own bodies.
So maybe having tracking apps is not a bad idea, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Anything we can get that data from is key.
As you said before, that menopause was like a shameful topic almost, or a taboo. And in my experience, when women hear the word menopause, they almost get afraid. So why is that? Do you think, is it because in the past there have been so much like false information and shame associated with the topic?
Yeah, I think so. And it's always been put down to age, right? So when you mention the word menopause, it's always like, oh, I'm not there yet. That's in the 50s and 60s. Well, those years creep up quite quickly. And, it's always been associated with aging. And it is, because our bodies are aging and it's a natural biological process. However, at the GCC Menopause Hub, we are actually trying to make it trendy to be being in the perimenopause. Because if you're in your 30s, because going back to the perimenopause, some women can actually start their menopause very early due to treatment, cancer, for example. They could have early onset menopause and so on. So they're not old. So, it's how we as women approach it and embrace it, and how then we have that conversations with others. And I would say my generation are hopefully the last generation to be able to, talk, to not be fearful of it, and the generations above us embrace it, because there are a load of women that go through the menopause who are amazing and are really strong in the postmenopausal stage, because they understand their bodies, they know where they want to be in life, they've got rid of stuff that doesn't serve them anymore, and they really start living. And I've seen it, and I've been witness to it, and me included. So there's no reason to fear it. It's just understanding it, educating yourself and your family and those around you, and then just embracing it.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see on Instagram and TikTok that there are more and more women talking about it, that they are going through perimenopause. And also on the other side, there are these funny videos that I see sometimes about men. I'm sure you have seen it, men talking about what you should not do when your wife is in perimenopause. They're like, you're breathing too loud. You're chewing too much.
It is true. Yeah. I can vouch for that. There are certain days where some things where you were more tolerant to just send you haywire. You like you said, somebody's breathing too loud and it really irritates you. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's just there because we're losing those really valuable estrogen, progesterone and testosterone, definitely progesterone.
So it makes us more like men, actually.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I guess we do have testosterone.
Yeah.
We're quite high in testosterone at certain times of our period cycle. We've usually got higher testosterone than men at the beginning of our period cycle. So, it's that calming progesterone and that balance of hormones that have regulated for so long. And you can now imagine our bodies are now going, what's happening? You used to have all this. Now your body's trying to, and your brain is trying to rewire whilst all this is going on, and that's what's happening.
It's a little bit like puberty.
Of course it is, yeah.
Just
on
in
the
a
decline.
different direction.
Yeah.
What would you say are the most common symptoms you see, and what are the most overlooked ones?
The most common ones are brain fog, hot flashes, anxiety, mood swings, sleepless sleepless nights, and the ones that are overlooked are vaginal dryness. You're burning the mouth, your tongue can be burning, itchy skin, itchy head. There's a whole array of different. When I first started, I think there was roughly around about 52 different symptoms. And now there's over 100 different symptoms, like tinnitus? Tinnitus, yeah, that one as well, ringing in the ears,
I
your
heard
eyes,
about that one. That's so interesting.
Dry eyes, all sorts of different stuff.
If someone suspects they are in perimenopause because these changes come and you can feel that something's not the way it used to be, what are the first steps you would tell her to do? If there is anything.
Yeah, definitely. Go and have a conversation with somebody like a GP or myself who know about what's going on, just to put their mind at ease. That they're not going crazy, because a lot of women do feel that they're going, crazy. Just to have a conversation with their GP. Keep a journal, like you were saying about trackers and stuff like that, so you can physically take it to them. Because what was happening, and not so much now, because doctors are actually getting trained, because believe it or not, doctors don't get educated enough on this subject. They have about 3 to 4 hours of training in their whole medical career. Crazy, huh?
Okay.
And they are the first people to say, hands up, we'd never got the training. But now, there's some great doctors out there who do understand, because what happens is, again, women will go to their GP, and if they're not versed on it, they will go, oh, you're just having a bad day, or you may be a bit depressed, or take this tablet to do this. So they don't look at you as an individual, they look at one symptom, but you could have an array of symptoms that are starting. So really keep a journal and go and say, could I be in perimenopause? Is this an option? And then if the GP gynecologist is clued up, then they'll give them the options of maybe taking HRT, maybe alternative medicine if they don't want to go down the HRT route. So I think the key thing for your listeners is that there is something that you can do straight away. You don't have to suffer, which a lot of women have suffered.
I think it's because women sometimes feel gaslighted by doctors, and that's why I'm really happy to hear that they are getting more educated on the topic, because I think women sometimes are afraid to go somewhere with some medical issue because they know that they will say, maybe you're depressed, maybe you're too stressed, maybe this, maybe that. But in the end, they don't see the whole thing,
No. And just going back to that, a lot of women are at the heights of their careers. C-suite or whatever they might be in, and they really feel that they need help. And a lot of women have actually left their positions because they don't feel that they've been heard or understood or listened to or helped. So the more we can, sort of work within workplace and get doctors, onto the right path, women then have loads of different avenues to go and get help.
Yeah. You mentioned before that it's important to have enough sleep and the nutrition and, of course, exercise. Which of those do you think moves the needle faster, like better? Which one is or is there no one thing solution? I guess it's a combination, right?
It is a combination.
Yeah.
And, as you go through the menopause, it's not a quick fix. Women always ask me, should I take HRT?
Yeah.
And my answer to them is if your lifestyle is flawed by your symptoms, then why not go on it? Obviously you have to have the checks and stuff. And another quick thing as well, which I forgot to mention, when they do go to the GP, if you're in your perimenopausal stage, so you're still having your periods, your GP might say to you, we'll give you a blood test. They'll give you a blood test and everything will come back normal.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not an indication that you're not going through the perimenopause. You still might be, but because you're having hormonal cycles, it might come back normal.
Yeah.
And then the GP will go, it's normal, go away and do whatever you want. So again, understanding your regular cycles and where you're at will really help. I forgot the question.
I asked about sleep and nutrition.
And stuff. Yeah, it isn't one thing that it's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
And I think for me it's sleep, because when we look at the hormonal shift that's going on in the body, and when we talk about the perimenopause, we're always just talking about usually progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. They have a massive impact on all the other hormonal profiles that's going on in the body, like your melatonin, your serotonin, your leptin, your ghrelin, and all the other hormones that are going on in the body. So looking after your sleep, we all know that if we sleep better, we eat better, and we exercise, and we're less stressed.
Yeah.
So I always work with sleep first, because that is your kingpin.
I actually read somewhere that women need more sleep than men.
Yeah, true. I read that article as well.
Because their hormonal, like this whole cycle that is happening, a lot of it happens during sleeping, and that's why women are more complex when it comes to that, so they need more sleep.
Yeah. And our bodies, and the other thing that as well is if we're highly stressed, not sleeping, cortisol levels are raised.
Oh yeah.
And cortisol is one of the biggest, I'd say it's the kingpin of your hormonal profile, because if cortisol is high, it shuts everything down.
Yeah.
So, if you're looking to lose weight or, de-stress, then it really plays an impact on your nervous system. So
absolutely. What about supplements? Because I'm reading things like creatine may be a good factor for the symptoms in perimenopause, so it makes the symptoms a little less like extreme. I'm not sure if there is enough science behind it, but are there any other supplements that you say it's worth looking into it once you reach that stage?
I think with anything, it's finding out why you want them and what it's going to help. So creatine is one of the main things that, when I was talking about we've never been studied, creatine has always been related to men in the gym getting big, muscly, and so on. Creatine now, the studies are showing that if women actually do take creatine, it actually helps with cognitive function.
Yeah. So the brain fog.
And stuff like that. Now, some women have experienced a little bit of weight gain with it, and it's usually fluid retention. Maybe they're taking too much. And when you take creatine, it has to be over a period of time, usually between 6 to 8 weeks before you start to notice something. And it's 5 grams, less than 5 grams a day, every day, and you just pop it in your water. That's it. So this is a perfect example of what studies are now coming out for women to use whilst we transition through to postmenopause. And even in postmenopause, you don't have to stop. And when it comes to other supplements, I'd always say, where's your baseline and why are you taking them? Because there's so much stuff out there now, just with slapped menopause labels on them. So I'd suggest getting, your baseline test done, vitamins and minerals and other stuff before you start adding to it. But there are other things you can take, like ashwagandha, rhodiola, all the natural herbs and remedies if you want to take those as well. But understand why and what they're serving first.
You also talked about lifestyle changes. What are those lifestyle changes? Is it like the sleep and the exercise, or what other changes are, let's say, suggested by you to women that work with you?
Yeah. So with me, I'd always look at their lifestyle. So I'd look at their sleep. And when it comes to nutrition, definitely a lot of foods that we used to eat don't serve us well anymore. We get bloated from them. So again, it's keeping a diary, understanding how it affects you after the meal. Do you feel hyper? Do you feel low? Do you feel bloated? Generally with me, I find my best results when I work with my clients is protein-based diet. We as women, I'd say we are mostly in an underfed state, meaning we don't feed ourselves enough and properly. Because of everything we've followed from the 70s, 80s, 90s, it's like, do this diet, do that diet. And what it's done is it's just really played a massive roller coaster with our hormonal profile. So it's bringing that balance back. And there's a lot of hormonal profile changes as well. So I tend to find that a plant diet with high protein really helps as well. Women kill me for saying don't drink alcohol, because a lot of women, if they're having not a lot of women, some women may turn to alcohol to get over a really bad day or stress or whatever, Alcohol plays a massive part because it's high in sugar, with hot flashes and stuff like that. And
it disturbs sleep.
I was just going to say it disturbs our sleep as well. So if we can cut back on things that we know are not beneficial to us, which we know, they're just habits and comfort blankets, I guess, and if they can cut back on stuff like that and just really look at their diet, protein intake, fiber intake is really, really important.
Let's quickly talk about hormone therapy, because I think there is always this it's always swinging between miracle and danger, like people are saying, no, don't take it. The other ones are, it's the best thing ever. How should a woman decide when to take HRT, and what are the benefits, and why is it even necessary, or is it even necessary? What's your take on that?
I think everyone should have a choice of what they want to do, and whether it's going down the HRT route or not. And what I say when people ask me is that HRT can be a lifesaver. Okay, so, and again, there's so much more studies now to show that it's more about longevity as well. So we talk about HRT taking it to get us out of that really stressful perimenopausal stage, should a woman be in that way, because you and I could be completely different. I could go through it with no symptoms, which, to be honest, I nearly did, with a little bit of hot flushes and mood swings. So I say to them, if you are flawed, then why not take it, as long as you've been checked out for cancer risks and other stuff? Because in 2002 there was a study that showed that HRT was causing cancer. So women overnight ditched their HRT, and it's taken till now to sort of get that name, get a good name behind HRT again, because it was associated with breast cancer. There was a lot of flaws in that study, but now the HRT has changed. It's better for us, and it helps with us longevity. So in postmenopause, for example, we are prone to osteoporosis, insulin resistance, and cardiovascular disease as women. Taking HRT through that stage and beyond can actually help us with those diseases. Not to say that we couldn't do it through lifestyle, of course, but it can help us. So I would say to those who are not sure about it, have a conversation with somebody that understands what HRT does. And if I've heard some women love it, and some women don't get on with it. And going back to what can we do in our perimenopausal stage, there are tests now that can be done. And we can have a test done to say whether we would be susceptible to responding to HRT or not. So there's a lot of DNA tests that can be done on us now that we can help us even decide in our premenopausal years, because a lot of women are having their children later, are, you know, maybe having a DNA test done at the very beginning so that we know what our sort of fertility might look like. So then we can have the option of freezing eggs and having children earlier.
Does this have any influence on menopause? Or when you go into menopause, when you...
Yep, you can get a rough idea of when you're going to start the menopause, when you have your DNA test done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned egg freezing, because when you do egg freezing, or even when you do IVF, you get a lot of hormone injections, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does this have any effect on menopause later on? Is there any scientific study done on that?
I'm not quite sure whether those have an impact on menopause as they go through that stage. I guess it's going to have some impact on your hormonal profile because it's unnaturally induced.
Yeah.
That said, you know, I've seen women in their late 50s go for IVF who have gone through the menopause and have children.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because what they do is they stimulate the egg, have artificial insemination, and then go through and have pregnancies. So the world is changing.
Yeah. So
very differently.
That's so good. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something that not many people talk about, but I would like to talk with you about. How does perimenopause affect libido and intimacy, and what are practical steps that women can take that actually work?
Again, I love that question because it's something that women don't talk about, and it has a massive impact on not only us but relationships as well. So it does have an effect on you. Again, every woman is different, but you know, you tend to. I always say that if women are usually sexually active, enjoy intimacy, then they can still enjoy that going through the menopause. But our libido does drop. Our vagina dryness has an impact on us. And it's really important that we have that conversation with our partners, because it's not the fact that we don't want to have intimacy, it's because it hurts or there's something that, you know, we're not quite sure about. So again, there's loads of stuff coming out now. There's local estrogen vagina cream that you can use, lubricants and other stuff that are available. So that doesn't have to have a big impact on us as it used to do before. And then I always say, well, look, if you didn't really like sex before post, you never, you know.
You will not get into it.
But saying that, though, a lot of women who do go through into post are actually more sexually active because they're not thinking about pregnancy, don't have to take the pill.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, it's down to the individual woman and, you know, what floats the boat, really, I guess.
I love that. And in the end, as you say, I think it's important just to make your partner aware of it. And
maybe, you know, I've done a cheat sheet for sort of like men and couples to say, look, if it's a testing time and it's just a transition and you're trying to figure things out, go on date nights without expectations. Do something fun, and you know your partner. You know what she was like before the menopausal stage. So recreate those, you know, those fun things that you used to do, and not always put it down to intimacy and do things that way until you figure it out. Taking out the
pressure a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. If a woman only has 10 minutes with a doctor, what should she ask or say to be taken seriously when it comes to that topic?
I mean, the good thing is if you go in with your diary and your journal about what's actually happening, then that cuts out all the conversation beforehand, and it says, I think I'm in perimenopause, can we have a conversation? And then just say, what are my next steps? What should I do first? Mm-hmm. Generally, they'll take you for a blood test. And to be honest, most of the time, like I said, it comes back. If you're over the age of 45, in the UK, they don't give you blood tests. They go on your symptoms.
Okay.
So that's ruled out. But here, because we're on private insurance, they'll send you for everything and everything. You'll have tests up to your eyeballs and not necessarily come back with any answers. So have that direct conversation. You know your body as a woman, and go to the right doctors, which on the Menopause Hub website, we've got all the doctors that are really up to date with menopause. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I will link that, so anybody who's looking for a menopause doctor can go there. Do you think there's a difference going through perimenopause and menopause here in the GCC, or do you think Europe and the GCC are pretty much the same when it comes to it? Like when you look at work and family and cultural.
Yeah, I think there's a difference here because of what you've just mentioned. I think the UK are really, they're at the forefront of talking about menopause and talking about menopause in the workplace, which is where I sort of took my lead from. Here we've got to be very sensitive because different cultures have different ways of dealing with family issues and definitely women's health issues. But I think it comes down to the women in any country. We've got to be talking about it. If we don't talk about it, how do we expect anybody else to talk about it? And that's no different no matter what culture you're in. I think it's got to be an open conversation.
Yeah. Where do you want to see menopause care in the region or in general to be in 5 years or 10 years?
Yeah, I would love to be able to have within the medical industry a proper path for women's journey to go and have that conversation, to have more doctors on board to be able to, have conversations with women, to have better healthcare policies, insurance policies, because at the moment I'm 55, I can't get pregnant anymore unless I go down the IVF route, which I don't want to. Why should I be paying for maternity or pregnancy on my insurance policies? So looking at insurances, how do we navigate that for women? Why do we have to pay premium all the time? And then with the medical industry, having routine checkups for perimenopausal women and so on. So I'd really like, and open policies in workplaces.
So you think it would make sense to have kind of guidelines for...
Guidelines, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And for the governments and the medical industry health authorities to actually have policies and talk about this openly.
I love that. So, and I guess you are working on that with
we
the
are
GCC,
working on, yes, we are, definitely.
Menopause Hub. Yeah. I love that. Okay, I think I have covered all my questions. Is there anything else you would like women to know?
I think from me personally, I think for women to really embrace the menopause, because it's a learning curve for us to learn about our bodies, understand it, embrace it, and the more education that you can get about it, the better you will transition through it. And don't fear it. You can really thrive through it. Don't suffer. A lot of women suffer for years before they go and get help. So have conversations, go see your GP, connect to coaches. There's quite a lot of coaches out there now. And just really open that conversation and don't be afraid of, what people might think, because we're trying to, I don't know whether you know, but the UAE or the actual Arabic word for menopause is age of despair.
Oh, wow.
But they've changed it to age of hope now, which is a little bit better.
Okay.
So we are sort of getting there, and as long as we embrace it, everybody else around us will embrace it. Don't be shy.
I loved it. That's really good advice. Yeah. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid of it. Embrace it.
Yeah. Sharon, thank you so much for this clear and practical conversation. I really appreciate you. And to everyone listening, if this episode helped you, share it with a friend, a sister, a colleague, because this is the kind of information that we shouldn't have to discover on our own. Subscribe to the Icon Edit wherever you listen. And if you have a minute, leave a review. It helps more women to find the show. And I will link all of Sharon's links and resources in the show notes, and of course also of the Menopause Hub. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing the information.
And I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
That was great.
You like it?
I love that. Oh my God, there's so much good information. And I love that we also talked about the